One night in Miami changed everything.
People laughing and celebrating. Heil and Adolf. I cannot believe we're even seeing this and witnessing Miami Beach.
A Miami Beach nightclub catching heat, accused of celebrating hate with a song about
absolute disgust.
Disgusted, horrified.
Controversial influencers are also in a video from a limo. In that one, they're singing, and one of them is performing a Nazi salute.
Not because of what happened in the club, but because of what happened after. Andrew Tate, the man who built an empire on never apologizing, never explaining, and never backing down, did all three within 48 hours. The same person who told millions of followers that real men take full responsibility, that excuses are for the weak, that you never fold under pressure, folded the moment pressure actually showed up. This isn't about a song at a nightclub. This is about what happens when someone builds their entire identity on strength, and then the world gets to see what that strength looks like when something's on the line. The guy who survived arrest, international legal battles, and years of controversy didn't get taken down by governments or critics. He got exposed by a single night in Miami and his own response to it. Andrew Tate spent years building a very specific image. The man who doesn't bend, doesn't explain himself, operates by rules most people are too weak to follow. No excuses and no deflection. Take complete responsibility for everything that happens to you, whether it's good or bad. That was the message, repeated constantly across thousands of hours of content. And for a long time it worked because Tate seemed to live it. Arrested in Romania, he didn't apologize. Banned from platforms, he doubled down. Criticized by media, he laughed it off. The brand was bulletproof because the consistency was bulletproof. Until Miami. Here's what happened. A group of controversial figures, Andrew Tate, his brother Tristan, Nick Fuentes, Sneako, and Clavicular, went to a nightclub in Miami, just a regular night out. At some point, a Kanye West song started playing, not just any song, but one that had been getting people in trouble, one that platforms were removing, one that venues were explicitly avoiding because of backlash. Nobody stopped it. Footage shows them smiling, vibing, enjoying the moment. Andrew Tate is visible in multiple clips, clearly present, clearly aware of what's happening. Then the next morning, Miami exploded. Local news picked up the story. The club employees who played the song were immediately fired. Venue owners across Miami started issuing statements saying the group was no longer welcome. The mayor went on camera saying Andrew Tate wasn't welcome in Miami Beach.
It's disgusting, it's shameful, and you are not welcome in Miami Beach.
Suddenly, this wasn't internet drama. This was real-world consequences. Bans, access denied, reputation on the line. And that's when. Here's where people started noticing the cracks. Andrew Tate has said repeatedly for years that he never snitches, never throws people under the bus, that real men take responsibility and let others make their own decisions. But under pressure, that principle disappeared. People started posting side-by-side clips. Tate before Miami talking about never making excuses, then Tate after Miami making excuses. Tate before talking about taking full responsibility, then Tate after deflecting responsibility. The contrast was impossible to ignore. But it gets worse, because while Andrew Tate was carefully explaining why this wasn't his fault, everyone else involved did the opposite. Myron from Fresh and Fit, no apology, stood on it completely. Clavicular posted videos flexing to the same song, making it clear he didn't care about backlash. Nick Fuentes doubled down, said the outrage proved his point. Sneako called Tate out directly for throwing him under the bus, said Tate folded when it mattered. So now you have this situation where the person who built his brand on being fearless is the only one in the group who's scared. The guy who said real men don't apologize is apologizing. The guy who said you never explain yourself is explaining everything. And everyone around him is standing firm, making him look weaker by comparison. Then the contradictions started piling up. While Tate was saying he was uncomfortable with what happened, footage from that night shows him smiling, vibing, and clearly enjoying himself.
I'm not here to make excuses for myself. I'm not here to say it wasn't me. I'm not here to, blame someone else. But it is kind of ridiculous. It does feel a bit unfair that I'm standing in a nightclub. A song comes on that I did not request. A song comes on that I do not dance to. I do not repeat the lyrics to. I just stand there.
Not uncomfortable and not trying to leave.
It was a catastrophic mistake. The tanks were poorly prepared and rushed into battle. Most bogged shell craters were destroyed before ever reached the wire. The Australian infantry that followed found themselves exposed, unsupported, and walking into a meat grind. Australian Major Percy reportedly shouted, "Come on, boys, bugger the tanks!" Then he charged. Those Anzac troops managed to break through the first German trench. They were too few to hold it. The Germans counterattacked behind them and cut their lines of retreat. 11 tanks had headed to the attack. Only 2 made back. Unlike at Vimy Ridge, the German defense depth around Bullecourt held firm.
Before the fight, he projected total confidence with training footage that looked sharp and betting odds that heavily favored him, while age and time away weren't presented as obstacles. Then he lost, and immediately the explanation started. He was 40 years old and hadn't fought professionally in 10 years. The weight class wasn't ideal, and maybe God wanted him to lose. The same man who said, "I've never seen anybody dedicate themselves completely and fail," suddenly had a list of reasons why dedication wasn't enough. The same man who said you must take complete responsibility was now framing the loss in terms of divine intervention and circumstances beyond his control. Confidence when things are going well, explanations when they're not. What's fascinating is how Sneako's response exposed the deeper problem. Sneako didn't just call out the deflection, he called out the entire worldview. In a long stream breaking down what happened, Sneako made a point that cut to the core of everything. He said Andrew Tate's problem isn't that he made a mistake, it's that he's operating from ego instead of principle. Tate has said publicly that influence is fun because it activates the ego, that the point of being a man is to bend the world to your will, that leaving your mark on history is what matters. Sneako's response was simple. That's not strength, that's slavery. Because if you're driven by ego, if you need the world to bend to you, if your worth depends on being seen as powerful, then you're not free. You're trapped. The moment someone threatens that image, whether it's a loss in the ring or a ban from Miami clubs, you panic, explain, and deflect, because your identity depends on maintaining that perception. Real freedom is being able to stand on principle regardless of consequence, and by that standard, Andrew Tate failed the test. Here's what makes this so damaging. This isn't about whether what happened in Miami was objectively bad. This is about whether Andrew Tate's response matched the principles he's been teaching, and it didn't. If your message is, never make excuses, you can't make excuses when pressure hits. If your message is, take full responsibility, you can't deflect responsibility to someone else. And if your message is, real men don't fold, you definitely can't be the only person in the group who folded. The content of the controversy doesn't matter as much as the response to it, and the response revealed something people weren't supposed to see. The response from others in the manosphere has been telling. Fresh and Fit made pointed comments about how Tate threw people under the bus. Sneako went on multi-hour streams breaking down why Tate's entire approach is flawed. Even people who weren't directly involved started questioning whether the top G image was ever as solid as it appeared. And Andrew Tate's response to all of this? He kept offering more explanations and more context, issuing carefully worded statements about how people were misunderstanding what happened, which just makes it worse. Every explanation reinforces the perception that he's in damage control mode. Every clarification makes it look like he's trying to salvage something instead of standing firm. The more he talks, the weaker he looks. Here's what changed. Andrew Tate will move on. He'll post new content, keep building businesses, and keep having influence. But something fundamental broke. The aura of invincibility is gone. The perception that Andrew Tate operates by different rules than everyone else is gone. He's not the guy who never explains himself anymore. He's the guy who explained himself when it mattered. He's not the guy who takes full responsibility. He's the guy who pointed at someone else when pressure arrived. And he's not the fearless figure who stands alone against the world. He's the guy who got scared when Miami clubs started banning him. And once that perception shifts, it's almost impossible to shift it back. The Miami incident won't end Andrew Tate's career in a literal sense. He'll keep making content, keep building businesses, and keep having influence. But it ended something more important. It ended the image. The idea that Andrew Tate is different, that he operates by principles other men can't maintain, that he's immune to the fear and weakness he criticizes in others, that's over. Because the world just watched watched him respond to pressure the same way everyone else does, with explanations, with deflection, and with fear disguised as context. And in a brand built entirely on strength, that's the one thing you can't survive. The internet doesn't forget moments like this. The clips will circulate forever. The before and after comparisons will be referenced every time he talks about accountability or never making excuses. Andrew Tate didn't get taken down by enemies. He got exposed by his own response when something was actually on the line. And that's how careers end in the influencer world. Not with a bang, but with a contradiction nobody can ignore.